Hello YouTube, Chris Roma here, aka Roma Aquatics, coming to you with the first 10-gallon shrimp tank that's going to be going on the rack. It's going to be a crystal black tank, so let's get to it. So if you watched my Matten filter build and my little extra basket build here, this will look familiar to you. If not, it's my 10-gallon tank with a Matten filter, and these baskets are going to hold my fluval shrimp stratum. And something I forgot to mention on the Matten tank build is if you're going to use one air pump to power both of these, you really want to make sure they're at the exact same depth in the tank, and the lines that are going to connect to the splitter are exactly the same length. Because if one line has more resistance due to either more line length or more depth, that one's going to run slower, and then most of the air will go to the other one. So if you want them to run about equally, you want to get that as close to possible as you can. Or you could get those little valve things, but I like to just run it open and get all the full power out of it that I can. But anyway, first step to this build now that you see the tank is the substrate. Even though it's a crystal black tank and I'm putting the fluval stratum back here, I don't want a bare bottom, so I'm going to use pool sand for an inert substrate that I can put my plants and everything in, and I'll never have to change it, and then just worry about the buffering substrate back here. I'll use this because as you can see, it's about the same size as the display area in the tank, so I'll be able to get whatever depth and everything I want. Plus I think it's easier to fit into the tub here than a 5-gallon bucket. So let's get started here. Just gotta pour the sand. Let me mount the camera here. Really hoping that's a good angle. Oh, by the way, I got this sand at my local pool store. I think it was only about 18 bucks for these 50 pounds of it. So this should be enough to do maybe 5 tanks, 4 to 6 tanks. So I want a little more than that. Going for about 2 inches in depth. Just so it could hold the plants down nice. They're not going to get all tore up all the time. Places for their roots to grow. That's probably about good. Alright, so now what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this and it's going to go in my sink over here. And let's see if we can get a shot of that. It should be pretty good. So I'm just going to fill the Tupperware up with water. And this is pool sand, so it should be really clean to begin with. You shouldn't really have to mix it much. I just try to stir it up as it's filling. See, the water gets a little cloudy like that, you just dump out that cloudy water. And you just repeat that process until the water's clean. It shouldn't take too long. I'm going to pause the video so you guys don't have to wait through that. Alright, that only took a second or two. Probably 2 or 3 washes, that was it. Nothing bad. Now, I'm going to try to get this at an angle and you can see it. Kind of weird for me. I hope you can see that. Alright, that's good enough. slight hill on it. Not that it's really gonna stay, but I'll try to put a little bit more in back than I do in front, since it'll help me see the shrimp better. Alright, and inert substrate in. Now it's time for the buffered substrate. Alright, fluval time. So this is what we're using for the buffered substrate. There's a crystal red on there. But unfortunately I couldn't find my funnel, and a toilet paper roll is all I could come up with. So we'll see how that goes. Well, this might actually just pour nice. Let's see if I can just pour this nicely. You want these straight, because once this is in here, you also kind of want these leaning forward just a little bit. So. No, we're going to go with the paper towel. That's not working the greatest either, but hey, most of the side stuff's still falling where I want it to go. This is a lot better than the picture pouring from the bag stuff. Sticking at the middle. I'll let the runoff fall that way. Perfect. Perfect. That one's good. I thought I was going to need more than one bag. I bought 5 bags of this. Obviously not just for this tank, but I was figuring a bag for each one of these. But the bags are deceiving. Hold a lot more than you think. So I am making a little bit of a mess here. There's a couple, but it's not a big deal. Obviously a funnel would work better. But I know you got one around here somewhere. But that doesn't help me at the moment. All this. Smells like peat moss. Reminds me of working in the garden. wife's gonna kill me. I'm getting substrate all over the washer. Better clean that up before she gets home. Hide the evidence. Okay, so that's it for the substrate. So as you can see, I did miss a few. Fell out there, but for the most part, that is pretty damn good. Okay, time to put the water in. So here is my setup. I use gravity, so I mounted the bucket. It's hanging from a hook there. And then all I got to do is start the siphon, and it should drain the water into the mason jar. And then the water will run down the side of the jar into the substrate, and that's just so the impact of the water doesn't stir up the substrate more than it needs to be. So I don't know if I should try this one-handed or here we go. I'm going to suck on this tube, start the siphon, and try to get it going. So I got a little water in the mouth, but not bad. And I think we've seen about enough. So I got the Matten filter hooked up, and two issues immediately arise. You could see they're sucking up that the fluval shrimp stratum and it's tossing it out. So apparently I'm gonna need that one of those mesh screens at the bottom of those pipes. So I'm gonna tear this down, I'll put a screen in there and put it all back together, and you guys will have no idea that happened. But that's what I'm going to do now. Also, I noticed with both of these here, trying to run it off of one pump requires a lot more air than I thought it would. I'm going to just do one on each tank, and for a while, at least until the shrimp pay for the air pumps. But until then, I'm going to, instead of doing two on each tank, I'm going to go down to one, because it seems like there's plenty of flow for one. So, I mean, it has enough to pick up that substrate, lift it up the tank, and spit it out. So, it's enough flow. But I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you guys when I'm at, right here, I want to show you that is a sponge from my other shrimp tank that has been in there for about a month that I've been seeding to put in this tank to seed that filter. So that'll help the cycle faster. Okay, so this is how I'm going to solve the fluval problem getting sucked up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hot glue a screen on the bottom of there. But then as you can see, that's going to cut off like 50% of the flow there. So I don't like that. I don't know. I don't think that's going to work very well. So my solution to that is I'm going to cut this here at an angle to increase the size of the hole, and then hot glue that on like at an angle to increase the suck area, I guess you would call it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you the product. Okay, so here's the finished product. I decided to go ahead and do it on the top because, you know, flow in equals flow out equals flow in. So if it can't get out, it can't get in. So I might as well cut them both open. But yeah, as you can see, it's a nice big oval now instead of just that little hole. It's nice and screened off on both sides, which is nice. And this is going to help up here too, because if I want to put this below the water line, it'll prevent the shrimp from swimming in there. I'm sure some of the full newborn babies could probably get in, but then they're probably not strong enough to swim against the current. So I think that'll be good. So I'm going to put that in the tank, and we'll get back to it. Okay, I got the webbing in and the fuel in. That's what it looks like now. And works great. You can see there's a good amount of flow coming out of there. And I like that I could have it like half submerged. You can see the tank's all murky now because I took some waste from my other tank and squeezed the sponge in here. And I didn't want to suscept you guys to that because I watched Lup Diesel pour his nastiness into one of his tanks, and it made me want to vomit, like right there. So I didn't want to subject you guys to that. But I'm happy with the flow here. I basically rolled up a little piece of foam and clogged that hole that I had for the other stem piece in there. So that hole's clogged too. And now we're real murky. And basically I'm going to let this clear up and then aquascape it a little bit. Not much, but put some stuff in there. So stay tuned. Right, the tank is aquascaped a little bit at least. I put some of the crypts in there, planted a piece of the guppy grass, hoping that that grows up nice. 2 pieces of water lettuce. And then I planted some of the crypts, and I keep wanting to say baby tears, but I don't think it's baby tears. I'll have the answer for you in the next video. But basically that foam from the Matten filter stays pretty wet. And if you grow the plants above the surface of the water, they have easier access to the CO2. So those should flourish pretty well. And it's still taking the nitrates and nitrites out of the water because the roots are still sucking the same water. So that's going to be cool. Hope that grows in nice. And then there's a rock that I took from the mixed tank. It's got some moss stuck to it. And there's an Indian almond leaf in there. And you may have noticed that the gravel looks different. That's because I took about a third of the gravel out of the mixed shrimp tank, or sand and crushed coral, not gravel, and mixed it in here. So now this is pool sand, black sand, crushed coral, and we have fluvial shrimp stratum back here. So that's awesome. And because I mixed this because the bacteria and the crushed coral. So now this tank is basically instantly cycled with the same bacteria. Plus if you remember, I dumped some of the nastiness in there too. So this tank should be cycled and ready to go pretty much. And a lot of bacteria and good crushed coral in there. And I don't know if I mentioned the reason I put the crushed coral in here is because I found that on my mixed shrimp tank, the TDS was 310. And then on this tank I measured, and it was only around 110. So I figured the crushed coral definitely has something to do with that. And King Aquarium left a comment on my video saying that it did. So awesome. Props to him. But if you want to see this tank once the water clears up more, because obviously I just did a lot of messing around with it, you're going to have to check out my next video because I'm going to get started putting up the Really tank here. So, till next time.